Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Happy by Nature live lesson all about the polar regions. Now, I'm Louise and I'm from WWF, and we're a charity and we work to protect endangered species and habitats all around the world. Now, I'm here today at the British Antarctic Survey HQ, or BAS for short, and they're the UK's main organisation for all things polar. And they run research stations, aircraft, and they have a special ship called the RRS Sir David Attenborough, and it helps for scientists to do their work in the North and the South Pole. And we're going to be finding out all about the environment, the animals and the habitats, and what it's like to work and live and go on expeditions to the polar regions. So we're going to be recording today, so if you do want to watch it back or you can't watch all of it today, then that's fine, you can do that. We've already had so many questions coming in, so we'll do our best to answer lots of those. And if you want to add more questions, you can, or if you want to put comments or just say hi, maybe write your name and your school and where you're from, you can do all of that in the chat. So it is not just me hosting today though, I'm also joined by explorer and TV presenter Steve Backshall, and he's been on lots of expeditions to the polar regions, so he can tell us all about his trips there. Good afternoon, Steve, can you hear me? Are you there?
I can hear you very well indeed, Louise. Yes, hello to you, hello to everyone at BAS, and also to all the people who are tuning in from all over the nation and indeed all over the world, which is absolutely amazing. I'll get to you lot in a second, but first of all, let me introduce where I am right now. So I am at home in Cornwall, and this is my equipment store. This is where I keep all of my expedition kit. I got back at the weekend from an expedition in the desert. It was very hot. It's about as far away as you can get from the Arctic and the Antarctic. But I'm here to tell you about my expeditions to polar places, the things that it takes for you to survive and thrive in those conditions, and more importantly, what it takes for the animals that live there too. But we've got people who are tuning in from all over the nation. So I'm going to say a quick hello to some of those from the far-flung parts of the country. We have from the North Downs Primary in Brockham, Surrey. Massive hello to you guys. To St Paul's Cabaret in Dublin, Ireland. Fantastic. Thank you all so much for tuning in. To Rudy up on the Scottish borders, and Ava in Newport, Wales. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Sweetity to you there, Ava. And then a really good one as well to all the homeschoolers. A massive hello, particularly those who are over on the Isles of Scilly. That is dear to my own heart because I can see the Isles of Scilly from where I am right now. It's just out there at the horizon from where I am here in Cornwall. So first of all, let's start with a bit of a brief rundown of what the polar regions are and how they're different, because they are basically poles apart, quite literally. So I've got a little globe here. This is my old-fashioned globe to give you a sense of how our polar regions are different. So that line running around the middle of my globe, as I'm sure you guys know, is the equator. That's the warmest part of our planet. Well, up here to the north, we have the Arctic, and down here, we have the Antarctic to the south, and those are the coldest parts of our planet. We would call those the cryosphere, the freezing place on our globe. But they are very, very different in geography. So let's start off with the Arctic. So the Arctic is up at the north. If we take a look at the geography of the Arctic, what you'll see there is that essentially you've got land all around the outside of it in the form of northern Russia, northern Canada, Greenland, and Northern America. But the Arctic itself, the area around the North Pole, there's no land there at all. That is frozen ice, pack ice. And that is going to move with the conditions, with the currents, with the tides, because it is frozen sea. In amongst it, you're going to have bobbing icebergs. They've carved off the end of glaciers, and that ice can be thousands of years old. But essentially, you have pack ice in the north, in the Arctic Ocean. That will be much, much bigger in the winter months and much, much smaller in the summer months. However, if we go to the south of the planet, to the Antarctic, it is radically different. So the Antarctic is a continent. It is a giant landmass which seems to go on forever, and it is a landmass of extremes. So the Antarctic is the highest, the driest, the coldest, the windiest continent on Earth, and it is land surrounded by the Southern Ocean. Because of that, they have radically different weather systems, they have radically different winds, and very, very different animals and plants that live there too. So let's get to a few of your questions about Arctic environments, because you've been sending in lots more. And please do feel free to send in more while this broadcast is going on. We would love nothing better than to have a question come in live that's a bit of a stickler that I don't quite know the answer to. You have to think like crazy quick. First of all, we have one that's come in from Thea in Surrey. And Thea wants to know what is under the ice at the North and South Pole. Very lucky to have scuba dived under both the ice in the North and the South. And the things you find there are completely different. So, for example, under the ice in the North, in the Arctic, you get some extraordinary macroplankton. That is really, really big plankton. One of those is called a sea angel. It looks like this amazing little tiny angel with wings that's flapping through the water. No penguins there up in the north. They're found down in the south. So under Arctic ice, you will find things like orca, bowhead whales, beluga whales, narwhal, and then occasionally things like male sperm whales, blue whales. Down in the south, you have those same whale species, but you also have the penguins too. And then leopard seals would take up the place of things like polar bears, which are the main predator in the north. A few more other questions. So Ravenshead Primary in Bedford and Burr Hill Primary School in Hersham asked, how cold can it get? Well, it depends on the season, depends on the time of year. So in the summer months, in both the Arctic and the Antarctic, you have absolute daylight all the time. The sun never sets. Doesn't mean it's hot, but it's a lot warmer. In the winter months, the sun never rises. So it's dark all the time. And I can tell you from having filmed there in an Arctic winter, Antarctic winter, it is brutal, really, really intense. And the coldest conditions, well, in the winter, it can get down to minus 60 degrees, but the record low was minus 94 degrees centigrade. I know that's really difficult, but to put that into a little bit of perspective, your fridge is probably at 6 degrees, your freezer maybe minus 20 degrees. I mean, imagine trying to sit in your freezer, quite how cold you'll be. Well, minus 94. I mean, it just completely blows my mind. So any bit of skin that you had exposed during those kind of temperatures would be instantly frozen. But in the summer, you know, you can be wandering around in a t-shirt sometimes if it's sunny, and there's lots and lots of life, about which I will be talking much more later on. Okay, we're going to go back to Louise now, who has a video she's going to share with you.
Thank you, Steve. Now, exactly that, to help us imagine what it's really like in the polar regions, I'm going to show you a short video. And now I want you to have a little go here, see what animals you can recognise. So watch carefully, and also for a kind of bonus point, see if you can decide whether you think they're from the Arctic or whether they live in the Antarctic. So we're going to show you the video now. Watch closely. So how did you do? Did you spot lots of animals? Okay, so you may have spotted a polar bear and maybe the reindeer, possibly walrus. And this one was a little bit trickier. Did you know what this last one was? Yep, that's a narwhal. So hopefully you spotted lots of those. Now, out of those animals, what do you think? Do you think that they lived in the Arctic or the Antarctic? So if you think they're Arctic, point north. And if you think Antarctic, point south. And maybe if you think it could be both, you can point up and down at the same time. Okay, so for those animals, Arctic or Antarctic? Point now. Well done. I think if you were pointing north to the Arctic, all of those animals can be found in the Arctic. Now, what about these ones? So you might have seen some different penguins, the emperor penguin, the gentoo penguin, and some different seals. So point now, do you think Arctic or Antarctic? Or maybe both? If you're pointing down, well done. These are all Antarctic animals. I hope you got that right. Now, what about this? Did you see the bird? That was an Arctic tern, and you might have spotted a humpback whale. So what do you think about those? North, south, both? What do you think? Point now. Well, if you were doing a kind of up and down pointing, well done. Those can be found in both. So the birds can go north or south, and the same with the whales as well. So well done. I hope you managed to get some of those right. Now, Steve has been able to see lots of these creatures in real life, in their natural habitats. So we're going to pass back to Steve now to tell us a little bit more about his adventures in the polar regions.
Yeah, that's right, Louise. So all the animals that you've mentioned there, I have managed to see and film in the past, with the exception of one, the narwhal, which I have still not seen, and I have to say is my absolute bugbear. We've tried so hard, we still haven't seen one. Now, I have been on lots of expeditions to both the Antarctic and the Arctic, but my most recent one is one that I'm really, really proud of because it was working in conjunction with the royal family. So King Charles, 50 years ago, exactly 50 years ago, went out on an expedition to the Arctic as a young prince, and he did some absolutely extraordinary things. So early last year, I went back to the same places that he went to 50 years ago and retraced his footsteps. So we're going to do some of the things that he'd done before, like diving under the ice and using a skidoo and going out looking for polar wildlife, essentially to try and find out how those things have changed. So here is a clip from the film that I'd love to show you guys.
Yes, we have one.
Two, there's two.
I could cry. Mother and cub out on the ice.
It just keeps getting better. The mum actually has two cubs with her.
She is, I would say, 1.5 kilometers away from us, in the most perfect position. Oh, I can honestly say, I don't think I've ever been quite so emotional to find an animal as I am at this second. They're eating, they're feeding. So I've got a mother and two cubs, and they are in the process of feeding on what looks like a relatively fresh catch, almost certainly seal. This is best case scenario.
That was such an exciting moment. We worked really, really hard for it. It was probably 3 days out over the pack ice on skidoos trying to find polar bears before we found our first one. And yet it really, really hit me. Now, the ways that you find a polar bear, it can be surprisingly difficult. So first of all, you'll use old-fashioned tracking methods, looking for their scat, for feeding signs, and for their footprints, which are absolutely huge and can be left for a very long period of time after they've walked away. Then you can use spotting equipment like this rather marvelous scope that I have here. I mean, you can see the craters on the polar bear is there in daylight, then you stand a good chance of seeing it at a distance. But even better are these amazing binoculars. These are thermal imaging bins, and these see in heat, not in light. So if there is a polar bear striding across the landscape, and you look through these, what you'll see is a little white dot, because you see their heat, which is amazingly contrasted against their environment. The polar bears are a really exciting animal to see for themselves, but they also have the advantage of being, as a top of the line apex predator, really useful for other animals too. So on a different filming expedition, when we were in Alaska filming polar bears, everywhere that we found those footprints, these great big footprints of the bear, you would find alongside them a much smaller footprint, which kind of looks like our very own fox here in this country. But it's not a red fox, it's an Arctic fox. And the Arctic fox would walk in the footsteps of the bigger bear, and whenever it caught food, the Arctic fox would get a free feed. And quite often you find a lot of birds like skuas and some kinds of gulls would come in, and they would also feed on what's left behind by the bear. So it's a really, really important animal for everything that lives in that Arctic environment. For you as an explorer, you always have to act as if there could be a polar bear around, because it's one of the very few animals that can be genuinely dangerous to us as human beings. So you have to modify your behavior as if a bear might be there, just to make sure that you're going to stay safe. Now, lots of you guys are wanting to find out things about polar bears. I'm not surprised. They are a very exciting and iconic animal. First off, we've got one here from Ralph Willington School in Wimbledon. They want to know how old the polar bears live to. Well, it's very, very varied. I mean, the top age tends to be 20 to 25 years. But it's a really challenging life for a polar bear. And quite often their youngsters, their cubs, won't get to make it to maturity at all. The young males, they may well have battles with other male polar bears, particularly the older, more experienced polar bears, which can be really, really dangerous. And sometimes the male bears will also, I know this is horrible, but they will kill the young cubs as well, so they can get access to the mum. So it's a very, very challenging life being a polar bear. The oldest they can get to about 25 years, but they don't always make it that far. Next up, how many polar bears are there now? From Nathaniel over there on the Isles of Scilly. Hello, Nathaniel, how are you doing? So it's a very difficult thing to figure out, because they have such a huge area over which they wander throughout their year. We think there's probably 25, 26,000. They're classed as vulnerable, not endangered, but in their environment, which is ever changing, particularly with anthropogenic human created climate change, the polar bear is one of the animals that is really has the biggest challenges ahead in its future. From the eco team at Hunsley Primary, East Riding, why do polar bears look white when their fur is transparent? That's a cracking question. Okay, so if you look at a polar bear up really, really closely, were you ever to be able to get that close, you'd find that their skin is black. So it actually absorbs lots of heat from the sun as much as possible. But each individual hair looks white, but it isn't. There's no pigment in it at all. There's no white color. In actual fact, it's transparent and hollow. And the way it works is they bounce light around inside that hollow hair and makes it look, or it has the same kind of function as a lot of our insulating clothes do. So essentially what they're doing is trapping a layer of air close to the body, and then that air gets warmed up by their movement and by their muscles, and that helps to insulate them. From Cofton C of E, we've got, what do polar bears eat? Anything they want. You know, you've got this huge marine mammal that's living in an environment where food is hard to come by, and they will take advantage of anything that comes their way. So we've seen them climbing up vertical cliff faces to grab a hold of eggs and birds and chicks. We've seen them eating seaweed, though if they can get it, they would much rather eat seals, and particularly the blubber that seals have, the big fatty energy-rich layer that seals have around their bodies. They may even take walruses, which are one of the biggest kind of seals, and sometimes even whales like beluga and narwhal, that they will haul out from the water up onto the ice to feed on them, which, you know, absolutely blows my mind. I mean, just even to think about lifting one of those animals is completely mind-blowing. Next up, St. Joseph Primary want to know, how much do they eat? Well, usually when they make a kill, a polar bear will try and gorge, try and eat as much food as they possibly can all in one go. It's quite a sight. So what you'll see is that the bear will just go absolutely bonkers, stuffing its face as much as they possibly can. There'll be red blood all over the snout and all over the head. They want to get as much food eaten as they can, because polar bears have an incredible sense of smell. So polar bears can smell a kill from as much as 20 miles away. Imagine that, 20 miles, they can smell food and then head towards it. So the second a bear makes a kill, it has to eat it as quickly as possible because it's going to attract in other bears. And if it attracts in a bigger bear, it's going to steal the food. So they might eat 20, 30 kilos in one sitting. And then the cutest thing you'll ever see, the bear will wander away nearby and just roll around in the snow, getting rid of all the gunk all over their faces, and then having a nice long sleep to get their food down. Right, Louise, I hope that hasn't put everyone off their dinner. I'd just like to throw back to you and see what you think about that.
Thanks, Steve. Now, as you can see, I am here. I'm about to get kitted up in all of the clothes that you need to work safely in the polar regions. Now, I'm here with Matthew, and he's going to show me what I need. What do I need?
Lots of layers, I'm afraid. So we've already got base layers on, fleece layers already. We've got spare insulated layers if you really want it. But we also need to look after your bottom half as well, your legs. So we've got some nice big down insulated bibbed and braced salopettes there. So these are going to be really warm. So if you're spending a long time on a skidoo or static, they're helping to keep you nice and toasty, trapping that in, keeping you nice and warm. And they come up really high, so it's protecting all the front of you as well there.
I feel like a big teddy bear or something in this.
Simple rule with insulation is bigger is better. The more marshmallow we can make you look, the more air you're trapping, the warmer you're going to be then.
Oh my goodness.
Looking fantastic there.
Looking
Absolutely
good.
spot on, yeah.
Okay.
So you've got the bottom half sorted as well then, and then over the top of that we'd have some boots for you as well then.
These aren't my size, are they?
I'm afraid they are, yes, yeah. So these are double insulated boots, so there's lots of insulation trapping the inside as well. And then because you stood on the ice as well, we want to make sure you've got a nice big wedge of rubber underneath then, insulating your foot as well. So sorry, I've stolen. Yeah. We've got your nice big thick socks on as well then, so it's all about multiple layers. You can adapt to the environment you're in, because you could be doing lots of different stuff down there as a scientist in Antarctica. So you could be really busy and working hard, or you could be stopped, taking measurements, taking readings as well. So we need lots of different options for yourself as well then. So we've got your boots on,
my boots.
Got your trousers on, and of course, we need a big jacket to
More
go
layers.
with as well then. I'm afraid so.
Okay.
So it's trapping that air, keeping you nice and
Wow.
warm then.
These are pretty bright. What bright colours?
Well, we want bright because we want to be able to see where you are in Antarctica. So the environment is all white, so nice bright reds, yellows, you stand out really well as well then. And counter to what you might think here in the UK then, black is also good because it's high contrast as well because you're in such a bright environment.
You can see me coming, that's for sure.
100%, that's what we want. So now we've got all your clothing and apparel and footwear sorted. You need some accessories to finish off the entire outfit as well.
Finish my look.
So head, really important to keep warm as well then. So we've got a nice hat for you there then. So
it's
flappy
quite
ears.
stylish.
Oh, well that's what we're here for, isn't it?
Okay.
Got to make you look good.
Looking good, keep my ears warm.
Exactly, so it's protecting those extremities, so nose, ears, because they stick out, they're more likely to get cold, so we want to make sure we're protecting all those extra layers as well then.
Okay, and I can see loads of gloves here.
There are loads of gloves, but just before that, we might want to put sunglasses on then, just because you won't be able to do them once you've got all those layers on as well then. So, yeah, so
I'm
really
going to be
important.
looking very cool. Oh,
Well,
do I need to take my
what you're
hat
here for.
off maybe for this? Go.
Turn this backwards.
Go, whoop. Okay.
Excellent.
I can't see anything now. I feel like it's be hard to move.
That's a very fair point, because once you put all these layers on, you've got to think about the order you do them in, because right now if I had to touch your toes, you probably wouldn't be able to get anywhere near them because you've got so many layers on top of them as well then. So if you put your gloves on before you put your sunnies on, you'd never be able to reach them because there's no fingers in there.
My goodness.
So mitts are great because they trap even more air, keeping you warm as well. So you can't do anything then because you haven't got any fingertips on them as well then. So not really great for doing delicate science, but for keeping your hands warm on a skidoo, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think I could do much with these.
No,
My
purely there to
goodness.
keep you warm, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm all wrapped up, feeling a little bit ridiculous, definitely warm, which might be a good thing because I'm off to the aquarium now. So back to you, Steve. I'll see you in a bit.
Why would you feel ridiculous, Louise? I have absolutely no idea why you would feel silly. Yeah, well, this is me in my Arctic hat and goggles. And so, yeah, back in the day, all of this would have been using things like wolf fur and beaver fur. Now, of course, it's artificial because we need to be much more considerate about the environment. It does, though, work in the same way that an animal's fur would do, trapping air near to your body to keep you warm. So this is all the modern stuff that we're using today, but people have been living in the Arctic for thousands of years. There could be as many as 4 million people living within the Arctic Circle right now, and indigenous who have been living there for hundreds or thousands of years, such as the Inuit. And I've had some fantastic opportunities to live alongside them, to learn about their lives, which are so, so different from our own. And on my expedition last year, I got an opportunity to try something awesome, which is Inuit throat singing. Have a look at this.
Throat songs often imitate the sounds of nature, in this case, an Arctic bird.
So yeah,
That's wonderful. I can hear it. The little sound that comes from back here is exactly like the sound. It's exactly like the sound. Alashua and Mary also show me a traditional song inspired by the walrus.
growing up, I always loved this throat song because the way that they described it was using all their might as walruses trying to climb this big iceberg. So that's what I try and imagine when I'm throat singing this song.
That was absolutely wonderful to see you keeping alive something that has so much of the story of the region embedded in it. It's just beautiful.
It's kind of like the equivalent of an Inuit rap battle. So the whole goal of it is to try and make your opponent laugh. And I can honestly say I have never giggled so much in my entire life. Right, now we've talked about insulation and keeping warm on Arctic and Antarctic expeditions, which is obviously absolutely critical. But the other thing is how you move across an environment that could be entirely snow or entirely ice. And for me, as an explorer, that's something I always have to be thinking about. So we have special things that we put onto our boots called crampons. So you can see those crampons there, and those will stick into ice and enable you to walk without skidding. But they also, using these front points here, which you make sure you keep nice and sharp, you can smack those into an ice face or a glacier and use them to climb even vertical ice, which is absolutely awesome. That, though, would not be possible without these. So these are my ice axes, which again are used for climbing on ice faces or for moving about on glaciers. Glaciers are one of the most challenging and potentially dangerous places for any explorer to be because they're constantly moving and shifting and breaking and cracking. Huge crevasses will open up in glaciers. If you don't have your ice axes, you're going to be in big trouble. And the one last thing that you're going to need to be able to move on that sort of icy environment is this. These are ice screws. So an ice screw, it's got these teeth on the end here, and you wind it into the ice and then turn it like this, and that will go into the ice and lock in place. And you could hang a Sherman tank off of that right up until the second that it starts to melt, and then they basically pop out. So you've got to be really careful about them. Right, okay, now I'm going to get back to some of your questions because you've asked some really, really good ones. Let's do some questions on kit now, which are my favorite subjects. So Exton and Greetham Primary School, what clothing did you need wearing Antarctica? So I used that jacket up there, which is super, super warm, and then really, really massive boots. I even put a little bit of foot warmers in my boots as well, because that's cheating, but you can do it to keep your toes particularly warm. Rudy from Stow on the Scottish borders, what is the one thing you pack for a polar expedition you couldn't go without? Well, quite often on polar expeditions, we use dehydrated food that's had the water taken out of it, and then you put boiling water back into it later on. So it's kind of a bit like a pot noodle or something, but they're not very tasty. And I love my hot, spicy food. So I particularly love an Indian curry. So my number one thing that I take with me on expeditions is a little pot of chili sauce, so spicy that it will pretty much explode your mouth. But I put a little bit of that on my expedition food, and it makes it all absolutely yummy. Next up, Amelia Saxon Primary in Shepperton. When you are on a polar expedition, where do you sleep? Well, I'm very glad you asked me that, because it's here in this. I put it up in my expedition store for you all to see. This is my expedition tent. So how is this different from an normal tent that you might go camping on? Well, first of all, it costs an awful lot more. Secondly, it's very low slung, so that the wind is just going to be driven up over the top of it. The poles are really, really strong, so it can take a battering from even the most intense Arctic or Antarctic winds. I have spent months inside this tent. I kind of love it. It's quite small, but it needs to be small, because if it's big, then the air inside just doesn't warm up. There's one thing that nobody tells you about on these Arctic and Antarctic expeditions, which is that as you breathe out when you're sleeping, you have water vapor in your breath, and that starts to condense on the underside of the roof of the tent, and then it freezes. So when you get up in the morning and you knock the tent, all of that falls down as ice on your head. So it snows inside your tent. There is absolutely nowhere that you can get away from the snow, which is thoroughly unpleasant. Also, you sometimes find that your tent, if you leave it in one place for any length of time, then the area around it will start to melt, and the area underneath the tent will be protected, and you end up sleeping on a pillar of ice up above all of the other area around you, which is just wild. So let's get back to Louise, who I think has some interesting creatures she'd like to show you.
Hi, so I'm now here in the aquarium. Now it is really cold in here. I'm quite glad I'm all wrapped up. I'm here with Sam.
Hi.
She's Sam Kentwell, and she's the manager of the aquarium here. It's freezing, Sam.
It is. So the room, the air temperature is at about -3 degrees Celsius, but then the temperature of the water is about -0.2, which is evidently a lot colder than you're used to, I'm sure, here in the UK.
But there's lots of creatures in here, and there's a lot more than, I always imagine that there's not that many different species in the Antarctic.
Yeah, a lot of people, when we think of the Antarctic, we only think of the seals and the whales and penguins, but underneath the surface, there is actually upwards of 20,000 species, we think, and that's growing pretty much every single day as well. Insane.
And so do many of the species look quite similar to things that you'd find in the UK?
Yeah, so this tank specifically is kind of a tank that has a lot of UK animals. So any ocean explorers would probably see a lot of these guys out in the water. So you've got things like your sea stars, brittle stars, sea cucumbers and urchins. The cool thing about them is they're all part of the same big family, which means spiny skin, Echinodermata. So because of that, they are actually almost all cousins. So I really like saying to people that a sea star's cousins are the brittle star, which is quite cute.
They're beautiful, but they're not moving very much.
No, so things in the Antarctic, or just life in general in the Antarctic, is really, really slow paced. So if you picture a coral reef, you expect everything moving around, loads of fish, loads of food, and that's just the main reason. There's just not as much food down here. So things tend to move quite a bit slower. Also, it's pretty cold in there as well, so I wouldn't really be moving around too much either. But not all of them look like a UK animal. Some of them look really quite different. So I've got some more in this other tank if you want to look.
Yes, please.
Beauty. Here she is.
Ooh, what's this?
So
wow.
She's really cool. She's a giant woodlouse, or a Glyptonotus. So she's a crustacean, or related to a crustacean. They're actually giant isopods. So it's a big example of Antarctic gigantism. So the normal woodlice that you'd see in your garden, for instance, are about 2 to 3 centimeters, if that. She can get up to 10 centimeters, so she's really cool. So we see gigantism in the poles because basically what it is there's so much oxygen in the water that these animals can grow a lot bigger, whereas basically things need oxygen to grow. There's a lot in the Antarctic and the Arctic, so they do this. So you have specifically obviously our Glyptonotus, but another thing that we see as well are our giant sea spiders. So these guys can get up to the size of dinner plates.
Wow.
So this isn't even the biggest that we have. This is just the biggest that I have on hand. But they are really, really big. And once again, it's purely just because there's so much oxygen in the water that they just grow quite a lot bigger than anything you really see in the tropics or the temperate. It's really cool.
It's incredible.
I know, they're sweeties.
I'd like to see that in my bathtub.
Oh, I love them. They're so cool.
So are all of the animals this big, Sam?
No, there's actually quite a few that are a bit smaller. So we can go and have a look at some of the fish if you want.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are some of our fish. So they're not huge animals like some of our other Antarctic animals, but they do have another really cool Antarctic kind of adaptation. What they have is within their body and in their blood, they have a special chemical that actually acts almost like an antifreeze on a car. So these guys don't actually freeze at all. So their blood can be cooler than 0 degrees and they won't actually freeze, which is just insane to me.
Amazing. They're actually quite colourful as well. Like this guy over here has got a quite pink.
Yeah, so we can see a pink harpagophyr. So what's really interesting about the harpies, or the Antarctic plunderfish, or the spiny plunderfish, is these guys will camouflage to look like rocks a lot of the time. So you can see on some of the other ones, they're quite grey. We've got a very active one.
Yeah.
They're grey, black, a few little white spots. But we actually have a pink one. So the cool thing about that is there's a specific algae that coral likes to use as almost a bullseye to land on. And it's actually pink. So it's pink coralline algae. So she's also camouflaging really well against rocks, but it's just not something that everyone would expect to see. Now what was really cool is we did actually have a group of divers down in Rothera, where we get our animals from, in Antarctica, who just really likes the pink fish. So we had a year of pink fish, which is really, really nice. Hence why we've got our sweet lady there.
So do the fish, can they actually change colour like a chameleon might do?
So not quite like a chameleon. So for these guys, what they'll do is they'll find a rock that has a similar pattern to them, and then they'll say, right, that's my rock, I'm perfectly camouflaged to that. So it's a bit cool there. They can change based on their behaviour. So we have some other animals over here, some of my fish over here. What's really exciting about these guys is when they're getting into a breeding behaviour, what they'll actually do is they have a bright black stripe down their head and a really bright yellow dorsal fin. But they only actually do it when they're getting ready to breed. Yeah, you can see them milling around. These are some of our Lindbergh ichthys, which are very cool fish.
Oh, well, thank you, Sam. It's really been fascinating.
Good, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'd like to stay in here for longer.
Yeah, but it's a bit cold.
Getting a little bit chilly.
Yeah, fair.
But if this scientific work is inspiring you, then you're going to love this project, because BAS and WWF have been working to detect another polar species, but we need your help. So watch this video and you'll find out all about it.
Walrus from space!
Sounds like an old 1950s science fiction film. But in fact, we're creating a 21st century detective story. And you could be the detective. We want your help to find lots of walrus. Easy, right? Look, there's one now. Impressive whiskers. But walrus don't like people getting that close. The good news is, satellite cameras can now take photos of all kinds of wildlife from space, including walrus. By examining thousands of these satellite images, we can help to understand how many Atlantic and Laptive walrus there are, even in the remotest part of their Arctic home. And over time, we can see how they're being affected by climate change. And we need you for this walrus search. Be a part of a huge public science project and help to safeguard the future of the iconic walrus. Volunteer just 30 minutes or more and be a walrus detective today from the comfort of your own home. Whiskers are optional.
Well, I hope that lots of you could get involved in that fantastic project. So we really need your careful observation skills, and you can help us find out exactly how many walruses there are. Now, you'll find all of the information about how to take part on our Happy by Nature hub, and you'll see all the different polar activities in that section on there. We've actually had so many different questions come in. That in a minute we're going to go back to Steve, but also I just wanted to say that there's lots of other polar activities that you can take part in on our Happy by Nature hub, so please do have a look at those. They all take about 10 to 20 minutes and they're designed to be part of any different lesson, so go and have a look. But before we do, we're now going to go back to Steve for a few more questions, and back to you, Steve, now.
Oh, thank you so much. Listen, I'd really like to echo what Louise was saying there and what the other guys have been saying. You know, if you are searching to try and find out what your passion is going to be in life, consider the sciences, consider conservation. If you want to do something like I do, then study really, really hard at school, particularly in the sciences. And who knows, you could end up down there with BAS, diving underneath the Antarctic ice to go looking for leopard seals, things like that. What could be a better way of spending your life than that? Now, I've got a fair few questions to get through as quickly as I'm going to talk quite fast now because I've got a lot of questions. I want to get through them quickly. First up, from Burr Hill Primary School, from Parkside Middle School, Bromsgrove, and St. Peter's Primary in Portishead, all asked the same question. How many different species of animals live in the Arctic and Antarctic? So in terms of biodiversity, it's not huge, about 21,000 in the Arctic, and probably only 9,000 of those are going to be marine in the Antarctic. Compare that to well over 1 million in a tropical rainforest, and obviously it is not a huge amount. What's my favorite Arctic animal? I say, well, I'm going to go with the narwhal, but mostly because I haven't seen one yet. Absolutely shocking. Still got that to see. That's from St John's Primary in Walsall, from Ava in Wales, from Lily Parkside Middle School. Also, what is the deadliest animal in the polar region? From my lovely friends Orkney, Oral and Dusky over there in the Isles of Scilly. From Frank at Swaddling Coat, Five Island Academy, St Mary's base, Isles of Scilly again, and from Single Goat Primary in London. Well, as you know, my idea of deadly is an animal that's not dangerous to us as human beings, but deadly in their own world. And in the Arctic, you've got the gyrfalcon, one of the fastest creatures ever ever known to have lived, a white falcon that hunts over the sea ice, making it potentially a bird of prey that is also a seabird. At St Giles on the Heath and Cofton C of E School, they asked, we learned to school for our Xmas play about penguins. We can name all 18 species. Can you? Oh my gosh, you put me on the spot now. That is some serious stuff. Okay, so we're going. Emperor, King, Gentoo, those are the big ones. Adelie chinstrap. Then you've got the northern rockhopper, the southern rockhopper. You've got the snares, the yellow-eyed, the macaroni, Galapagos, Humboldt, African. You've got the little blue or fairy penguin. You have the erect-crested. Oh, how am I doing? I've still got 3 more left to go. That is pretty intense. I've got the chinstrap. Do you know what? I think I might have to call it there, but that's pretty good, right? That's not bad. I think that was like 15 out of the 18, but you guys do better than that. So very, very well done. Dorchester Primary want to ask, and Horn CB Junior and Welsted Primary, what changes have you seen over the years using the polar regions? So my expedition that I did with the King last year was all about that. It was all about seeing how much our polar regions have changed over the last 50 years, and particularly in the amount of shrinking of glaciers and also in the sea ice as well during the summer months. It is extraordinary, the changes that have happened. We've got one here. We have a walrus turn up in Fife in Scotland. This is from BKDP family, which is unusual. Do you think more polar animals will travel to strange places? Environmental change. It's always a possibility. There is no doubt that particularly in our seas, things are changing so dramatically and with an unprecedented turn of pace. So we had a walrus turn up over in the Isles of Scilly as well. That is not to say that behavior like that isn't quite normal. We have species that will just rock up in the weirdest of places, and that happens all the time. And it can happen due to conditions, due to prevailing tides and currents and seas. So one animal turning up in a place that it might not necessarily usually be is not climate change. What will be climate change is a noticeable change in populations and locations and environments over time for a much bigger group of animals, and that is absolutely going to happen in the future. I have here, why doesn't your face freeze in the Arctic? Simple answer, it does. So your skin will freeze below about sort of -30, -40 degrees. And as I said earlier on, you can absolutely get down to -60 and even in extremis -94 degrees. So it's all about keeping as much of your face hidden as you possibly can. But I'm sure you'll all have seen pictures of explorers with their beards all frozen in ice and great icicles hanging off their eyebrows and things like that. I mean, essentially any part of your skin that you leave exposed is vulnerable to freezing, which is why you have to be so cold. And don't even start me on going to the toilet, because going to the toilet in a polar environment is about as uncomfortable as it gets. It can even be a little bit dangerous. What else have we got? We've got questions coming in from all over the nation, which is absolutely sensational. Last one, what can school children do to help protect the polar regions? I've got that from so many different schools, from Cromer Junior, from Odin and Tenney in Oxfordshire, from Isabel in Sheffield, Sacred Heart School in Wadhurst, and from Dame Allen's Junior. And I would say to all of you, you know, getting involved in conservation of any kind has to start at home. It has to start local. It has to start with your patch. Get involved in local charities that are doing their bit to help your wildlife and help your environment. And the more you start to learn, the more you can become engaged and look towards a future, doing something massive, heading down there with Bass, down into the Antarctic, heading with WWF up into the Arctic to help save the species that are absolutely on the brink and need our help now more than ever. And most of all, I think, to all you guys that are asking that question, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for being engaged, for wanting to learn more, because we need people like you out there wanting to save the planet. Now, I hope that you will all get involved, get happy by nature. This is me, Stevie B, signing out. Back to you, Louise.
Thank you, Steve. That was amazing, and there was so many brilliant questions. Thank you, everybody. Also, a massive thank you to the British Antarctic Survey for hosting us here today. It's been amazing, and it's been really great to learn from all their staff about all the amazing work that they do. So please do go and check out their website as well. The BAS website has got lots of education resources and activities and events. so you can have a look at that. Hopefully you will take part in some of the Happy by Nature activities, especially the Walrus project. I really hope that we maybe even get to hear some of your walrus throat singing. So do try and have a go, and if you want to share any of your videos or examples of your work, then please, you can hashtag Happy by Nature or just email us any of your videos or anything that you want to. Also, don't forget, you can join us again in March. We're going to have our next live lesson, which is all about UK nature. So we're really looking forward to that, and we hope all of you join us for that as well, and the registration for that will be open very shortly, so keep an eye out for that. We will send you an email, teachers and parents, after this with all of the links and all of the things that we've been talking about today. So for now though, I'm just going to say goodbye and thank you so much, and I really look forward to seeing you again very soon.